Chapter 1. When Art Meets Asphalt. People say life can change in a heartbeat. For me, it took exactly 3 steps and a catastrophic misjudgment of parking lot physics. Let me set the scene. It was 8:47 a.m., and I was already 12 minutes late for my senior portfolio review. My shoes were untied, my backpack was hanging on by a thread, and my art project, a mixed media portrait made from old candy wrappers and sheer desperation, was clutched in my arms like a newborn. Now, I'm not a clumsy person usually, but that morning, my foot caught on a crack in the pavement just as I was power walking across the student lot like my life depended on it. It did. In a moment that played out like a slow-motion car crash in a bad rom-com, I tripped forward, my project soared through the air like a glittery UFO, and my body collided face-first with something smooth. Cold. Shiny. Clunk. My shoulder bounced off a bumper. The sound it made was ungodly. And then I heard it, the very last thing you want to hear after hitting a car. A furious voice. You did not just scratch my Aston. I turned around slowly, praying to every deity, cosmic force, and cartoon genie that this was a nightmare. It wasn't. There, standing in front of the now-wounded luxury vehicle, was a tall, angular man with a jawline that could cut glass, sunglasses that probably cost more than my tuition, and a coat that screamed. Yes, I've been to Milan. Twice. This week. He stared at the damage like I'd personally offended his ancestors. And then he looked at me. You, absolute disaster, he said, voice sharp and perfectly enunciated. I scrambled to my feet, flustered and soaked in sweat. I am so sorry. That came out of nowhere. I tripped and the wind. Wind, he deadpanned, raising a sculpted brow. So the wind decided to assassinate my car using a poorly dressed art student? I instinctively looked down at myself. Torn jeans, paint-streaked hoodie, a button missing from my flannel. Not my best look. I tried to smile. It's a creative aesthetic? He didn't laugh. Of course he didn't. Do you even know what kind of car this is? A really shiny one. He exhaled like he'd just swallowed a lemon. It's a custom 2025 Aston Martin Valiant. Carbon fiber. Limited edition. 1 of 10 in the country. My brain translated that into, you've just committed vehicular manslaughter on a car worth more than your soul. I swallowed. Okay. So, you want my insurance info or? He crossed his arms. Do you even have insurance? I blinked. Does my student ID count? He sighed again, longer this time. More dramatic. And then he turned to his phone and tapped out a message so fast his fingers blurred. Probably texting his lawyer to have me disintegrated. After a moment, he looked back at me. What's your name? J. Harper. A senior. Visual arts major. Coffee enthusiast. Occasional klutz. A slow, wicked grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. Interesting. Not the word I expected. I'm Chase Monroe. And just like that, the clouds in my brain parted. Chase. Monroe. Heir to the Monroe tech empire. Tech genius. Billionaire. Probably modeled for Calvin Klein in his spare time. The guy whose name was always mentioned in the same sentence as Forbes and Trust Fund. Of all the cars and all the parking lots, I had to smash into his. And I was pretty sure Karma was laughing her ass off. Here's the deal, he said coolly. You owe me, but I don't have time to take you to court. Plus, you're kind of pathetic. Thanks. I'm hosting an exclusive Monroe Tech Art and Innovation Showcase in 3 weeks. My team just quit because I told them their concept was uninspired. You're an art major. You're desperate. You'll work for me. You design the space. Handle the aesthetics. Impress my board. I blinked. That sounds like a trap. It's a job. I pay well. And it's your only shot at avoiding a 6-figure repair bill. Your call. My brain screamed, no. Run. Hide. Change your name and move to Alaska. My mouth said, when do I start? That's how I found myself, an hour later, in the back of a black limousine sipping sparkling water I couldn't pronounce, while Chase sat across from me swiping through design files and occasionally giving me looks like I was a toddler with finger paint. The ride to his downtown high-rise felt like stepping into a different universe. Valet. Gold elevator. A penthouse that smelled like clean leather and ambition. He had a grand piano he probably didn't play and a bar cart that looked like a James Bond set piece. So, I said, trying to act like I wasn't overwhelmed, how exactly do I impress your board? He smirked. With magic. You're the creative genius, aren't you? You mean the idiot who dented your car? His eyes sparkled with something I couldn't quite place. Same thing. That night, I stayed in his penthouse working on sketches while he took Zoom calls in 3 different languages. At some point, he brought me truffle fries, and sat down beside me on the couch, close enough that our knees touched. "So," he said, his voice lower now, silkier. "You always crash into hot guys, or am I just lucky?" I choked on a fry. "Excuse me?" He leaned in, smiled devilish. "You heard me." "Oh no. Oh hell no." This man was rich, rude, and now flirting? But the worst part? I was kind of into it. Chapter 2 of Champagne Problems and Shirtless Distractions. I woke up disoriented, confused, and wrapped in 800 thread count Egyptian cotton sheets that definitely didn't belong to me. For a full 5 seconds, I thought I was dead. Like maybe the crash had killed me and this was some twisted billionaire heaven. Then I sat up and remembered. Nope. Not dead. Just broke. And somehow living in Chase Monroe's guest room. Guest suite, he corrected later, when I called it a room. This is Manhattan, Jay. That closet is worth more than your degree. I wanted to hate him. I really did. But the way he smirked when he said stuff like that. Ugh. It did weird things to my stomach. Anyway, let's rewind. After the whole dented Aston Martin turns into job offer situation, I was supposed to go home and regroup. But then Chase casually mentioned that his interior design team had quit mid-project, and he needed someone on site, immediately. He offered his guest suite as a temporary workspace. Temporary, my butt. The place was nicer than my childhood home and smelled like citrus and sin. My job: design the visual concept for Monroe Tech's newest product launch, a weirdly sexy smart home system with voice-activated mood lighting and facial recognition espresso machines. The event was in 3 weeks. No pressure. But the real problem wasn't the timeline. It was him. Every time Chase walked into the room, it was like the temperature changed. He had this energy, part confidence, part chaos. He didn't ask for attention. He just absorbed it. Effortlessly. And me? I was the hot mess in paint-stained jeans trying to pretend I didn't notice how good he looked in custom-fitted shirts that clung to his chest like they'd been born there. Let me paint you a picture. It was day 2. I was hunched over the digital mock-up at the long marble kitchen island, trying not to spill iced coffee on his imported countertop. I was wearing the same hoodie I'd slept in. Hair. Tragic. Eye bags. Industrial grade. He strolled in wearing joggers and no shirt. Just joggers. Low-waisted, charcoal gray joggers that revealed way too much hip bone and a sliver of toned stomach I had absolutely no business looking at. "Morning," he said, reaching for the almond milk. "You look awake." "That's generous," I mumbled, eyes glued to my laptop. "You should take a break. Go outside. Breathe air," says the guy who doesn't believe in public spaces. He smirked. "I'm allergic to common people. I'm a common person. Exactly why you're such a refreshing tragedy." I glared at him. You know, rich doesn't have to equal rude. He leaned in across the counter, so close I could smell his cologne, something dark and spicy that made my brain glitch. "I'm not rude, Jay. I'm honest. And devastatingly charming." And then, because the gods hate me, he winked. I dropped my pen. Later that day, Chase took me to get inspired, which apparently meant dragging me to a rooftop garden on the edge of Soho that was part art installation, part fairy tale, and entirely unnecessary. There were glass butterflies, floating candles, a waterfall made of recycled neon signs. "I feel like I walked into a Pinterest board on steroids," I whispered. He smirked. "It's curated. It's deranged. It's expensive," which is the same thing. But something about it did inspire me. The colors, the chaos, the boldness. I started seeing how the launch event could feel like that. Unexpected, immersive, a total sensory overload. As I babbled excitedly, Chase watched me. Quietly, curiously, like I was saying something important, even though I was just word vomiting about wall textures and suspended LED orbs. "You're cute when you ramble," he said. "Excuse me?" I said don't finish that sentence. He didn't, but the smirk on his face was louder than words. That night, I found a folder on my pillow. Inside, my broken art project. Somehow restored. Glued back together. The candy wrapper portrait I thought I'd lost forever. Carefully pieced back into place. There was a sticky note. "You're not a disaster. You're just underfunded." See, I stared at it for a long time. Because in that moment, I didn't hate him. I was terrified of him. Of how he made me feel. of how my heart was starting to race not just when he flirted, but when he smiled. And how maybe, just maybe, I was starting to hope he'd do it again. Chapter 3: Blueprints, Boundaries, and a Bathtub. I didn't sleep much after the sticky note. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it, his handwriting, sharp and deliberate like everything else about him. And worse, I saw his face when he said I wasn't a disaster. That stupidly perfect face, with the cheekbones, and the smugness, and those eyes that made me forget how language worked. Focus, Jay. Focus. I poured myself into the project. Literally. I spilled coffee on my tablet at least twice and might have sweated through my favorite hoodie from the sheer pressure of designing something that screamed artsy billionaire debut. But honestly, the space was coming together. The concept, a walking timeline of invention and desire. Shifting colors, kinetic sculpture, LED-lit panels displaying Chase's tech from childhood prototypes to his sleek new launch. The centerpiece? A suspended installation of fragmented mirrors and motion-tracked lights, reacting to viewers in real time. It was risky, bold, absolutely bonkers, which is why I was terrified when I showed it to him. We were in his office, aka the private Zen fortress of high ceilings, brutalist art, and a couch that looked like a leather cloud. I stood awkwardly while he scrolled through my designs on the big screen. For a full minute, he said nothing. Just stared. Expression unreadable. Heart melting through my ribcage. Then he turned to me. This is... He paused. My stomach curled. Too much? Not enough? Ugly? Be honest, I can take it. Brilliant, he finished. I blinked. Wait, what? His lips curved. It's risky. Unhinged. Exactly the kind of chaos I need. My knees buckled a little. And then, because I'm cursed, he walked over, stood close enough to short-circuit my frontal lobe, and said, I underestimated you. I swallowed. Yeah, well. I trip really well. He laughed. Like an actual laugh. Deep. Warm. Real. It did something to me. Something I didn't have time to examine, because then he said, Come to dinner with me tonight. I choked. Like food dinner? Or a meeting disguised as food? He tilted his head. Do you always have this much anxiety about being asked out? You're asking me out? Jay. His voice dropped, low and playful. I asked if you wanted dinner. The panic attack was optional. We ended up at a rooftop sushi place that required a secret code to enter. A waiter in a velvet blazer said, Mr. Monroe, right this way. Like we were royalty. I spent half the night pretending I belonged there, and the other half wondering if Chase could hear how loud my heart was beating. Conversation flowed easier than I expected. We talked about design. Art. How he once hacked his high school's sprinkler system to flood the lawn in protest of an unfair dress code. You were a rebel? I asked, eyebrow raised. Still am, he said, sipping his wine. But now I do it in Kashmir. At one point, I made a joke about installing a fog machine at the product launch, and he actually snorted into his drink. I felt floaty, like I was balancing on the edge of something new, until he said, So, have you figured out why you're really here? I frowned. Because I wrecked your car? Try again. I stared at him, suddenly very aware of how intimate the moment felt. Because you like watching me suffer? I said, deflecting with a grin. He didn't laugh. Just studied me. I see potential in you, Jay. Talent. Hunger. Fire. But you act like none of it matters. Like you're afraid to want things. I blinked. Okay, wow. Didn't know this was turning into a therapy session. Maybe it should. And just like that, walls up. I made some awkward excuse about needing to check render times and rushed back to the penthouse. It was nearly midnight when I heard the sound. Water. Splashing. I padded down the hall barefoot, following the steam until I reached the marble bathroom, and paused in the doorway slack-jawed. Chase. In a bathtub. Full of bubbles. Naked. The only thing keeping this from becoming NC-17 was a well-placed cloud of lavender foam and a very smug smirk. Need something? He asked, casually sipping champagne. Aye, wrong room. I squeaked, spinning around like a cartoon character on fast forward. He laughed. Relax. I'm decent. Mostly. I covered my eyes with one hand. What kind of boss takes business calls in a damn spa commercial? He chuckled again. The kind who's trying to unwind. Join me. My brain short-circuited. Absolutely not. Why? Scared of a little heat. Chase. His voice dropped to a husky whisper. I think you like being near the fire. I bolted. Literally ran back to my room and slammed the door. And behind it, alone in the dark, my heart thundered. Because the worst part wasn't the offer, or the fact that I'd seen him half naked, or that his words echoed in my head like a seductive spell. The worst part was, he was right, and I was starting to burn. Chapter 4. Rules, Red Wine, and a Reckless Kiss. After the bathtub incident, I did what any self-respecting adult would do. I avoided Chase Monroe like he was a walking HR violation wrapped in abs and sarcasm. I worked from the rooftop. I scheduled fake Zoom calls in the pantry. I even pretended to nap in the laundry room once, next to a cashmere sweater that cost more than my student loans. And for 3 whole days it worked. Until he brought in Reed. Reed was everything I wasn't. Tall. Blonde. Former male model turned brand strategist with cheekbones so sharp they could cut glass, and eyes that definitely undressed people professionally. I was in the middle of assembling scale models in the lounge when Chase strolled in with Reed trailing behind him, dressed in fitted designer jeans and a smirk. "Jay, this is Reed. He's helping with brand alignment and investor visuals," Chase said. "Reed, meet our creative genius." I choked on my own spit. Reed's handshake was firm, his smile surgical. "I've heard interesting things." Great. I was now anecdotal content. The worst part, Reed and Chase had chemistry. The kind that made my stomach do gymnastics and my inner monologue scream, "Why am I jealous of a living perfume ad?" They stood too close. Laughed too easily. Reed kept touching Chase's arm like it was a game, and Chase, damn him, didn't even flinch. I tried to focus on my renderings. Tried to act like I didn't care. But then Reed said, we should do a fire and ice motif for the big reveal. You," he looked at Chase, "can be the fire." And I snapped. "Actually," I interrupted, voice louder than necessary, "the whole event is already designed. By me. The guy who doesn't flirt with his coworkers for fun." The room went silent. Reed raised an eyebrow. "Touchy." Chase gave me a look. A warning. "Jay." But I was already standing. "I have to go update the lighting algorithm before it accidentally sets the place on fire." I left before I said something worse. Like, "Get your hands off him, he's mine." Except he wasn't. And that realization stung more than I wanted to admit. That night, I worked late. Real late. Tinkering with lighting settings, checking stage rigging layouts, refreshing myself with spicy ramen and spite. Chase found me around 1 a.m., curled up in the media room with my laptop on my chest and my pride hanging by a thread. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there in a t-shirt and sweatpants, looking unfairly good for someone who existed in permanent rich boy mode. "You jealous?" he asked softly. I didn't look at him. "You shouldn't bring people into a project halfway through. It's distracting." "I didn't mean to distract you." "Well, not that way." I shot him a glare. He grinned. "You're kind of cute when you're pissed." "Don't flirt with me," I muttered. He walked closer. Slowly. Deliberately. "Why not?" "Because this is work, because you're a walking scandal. Because you bathe in money and danger." "And yet," he murmured, now inches from me, "you still haven't walked away." I opened my mouth to argue, but all that came out was breath. Shaky. Wanting. He tilted his head. "Say the word, Jay. Say stop." "I will." I looked up at him. At those eyes that somehow saw straight through me. At the mouth that had teased, taunted, tempted. And for one heartbeat too long. I didn't say it. I didn't say stop. So he kissed me. It was slow at first. Testing. A question wrapped in heat. Then it deepened. Desperate. Wild. Messy. My laptop slid to the floor. My hands found his shoulders. His fingers tangled in my hoodie, tugging me closer like he'd waited days for this. I kissed him back. Hard. Like I'd been dying to. Like I'd finally stopped pretending I hadn't wanted this since the day I dented his stupid car. He pulled back first, just a breath away. "Bad idea," he whispered. "Terrible," I agreed, heart pounding. "Want to do it again?" I didn't answer. I just pulled him in. An hour later, I was lying in bed alone, lips swollen, thoughts tangled, heart spinning like a top. Because I knew that whatever that kiss was, it broke something. The rules. My defenses. And maybe us. Chapter 5. Storms, Secrets, and the Night I Almost Left. The next morning felt like waking up in someone else's body. A traitor body. One that remembered every second of that kiss. His mouth, his hands, the way he whispered "bad idea," like it was a prayer and a promise all at once. My brain was yelling boundaries. My heart, it was humming like a live wire. I avoided him all day. Again. This time it wasn't just awkwardness, it was panic. I'd crossed a line I didn't even realize was drawn in permanent marker. My career, my sanity, everything was riding on me keeping it professional. But that line? It was already ash. When I finally emerged from hiding to grab a Red Bull from the kitchen, I nearly walked into Reed. Because of course he was still here. "Morning, Picasso," he said, too smooth, too knowing. "You look flushed. Late night creativity." I scowled. "Don't you have a yacht to fall off?" He smirked. "Touché. But no. I'm here to help Chase with final branding approvals." My stomach dropped. "He stayed the night." "Don't look so shocked," Reed added, eyes narrowing. "We go way back. Business, pleasure, the usual." My blood iced over. Just then Chase strolled in, perfect hair, smug grin, and a hickey on his collarbone. I froze. So did he for a second. His eyes flicked to me, then to Reed, then back. "Jay," he started. "Nope," I said, grabbing my drink and walking out like the kitchen was on fire. Which it sort of was emotionally. I locked myself in the penthouse workspace and spent the next 6 hours reworking the lighting display until my retinas felt fried and my fingers cramped. I didn't know if I wanted to cry or scream or build a Chase Monroe effigy out of circuit boards. Because the worst part wasn't that he might have hooked up with Reed. It was that I cared. Way more than I should have. Night fell fast, and with it came a storm. Lightning flashing across the skyline, thunder rattling the windows, rain slapping the glass like applause from the universe saying, "Congratulations, Jay. You played yourself." I didn't hear Chase come in. But I felt it. That magnetic pressure. That heat. The awareness that he took up space in a way no one else ever had. I turned. He was soaked. Hair mussed, t-shirt clinging to his body, water dripping from his jawline. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to kiss him again. He stepped closer. "You're mad." Understatement of the year. "Can I explain? Is there a version where you didn't sleep with Reed?" Silence. That was all the answer I needed. I pushed past him. "I'm done. I'll finish the project, but after that." "Jay, wait." He grabbed my wrist, gentle but firm. I yanked away. "You kissed me like I meant something," I snapped, voice cracking. "Then you turned around and reminded me I don't." He looked wrecked. Real. For once, not the billionaire with perfect timing and curated charm. Just a guy. A stupidly beautiful, emotionally unavailable guy. "I didn't sleep with him," he said quietly. I blinked. "What?" He stepped closer. "That hickey? It was you. Last night. You didn't see it, but yeah. And Reed? He came over uninvited. He's been sniffing around for months." I told him no. "Then why let me think?" "Because I panicked, Jay." His voice rose. "You scare me, okay? You walk into my life with your hoodie and your stubborn mouth and your hurricane brain and suddenly nothing makes sense anymore." I stared at him. My heart thudded in my chest like a gavel. "I'm not good at this," he said, softer now. "At people. But with you? I want to try." I didn't know what to say. So I didn't. Instead, I stepped forward, grabbed his shirt, and kissed him like I was drowning and he was the only air left. This kiss wasn't sweet. It wasn't careful. It was everything, all the confusion, the want, the anger, the need. He kissed me back like he'd been waiting all day. And then we stumbled backward, knocking into furniture, tearing at wet clothes, mouths never parting as the storm outside raged louder. And inside, the quiet truth screamed. I was falling for him. Hard. Fast. Dangerously. Chapter 6. Exes, Exposures, and the Thing I Wasn't Supposed to Hear. I woke up tangled in a $1 million bedsheet, in a bed that felt like a cloud and smelled like Chase. Sunlight streamed through the blackout curtains he'd forgotten to close. His arm was slung over my waist. Our legs were tangled like ivy. And his soft breathing behind me? Dangerously comforting. I'd kissed Chase Monroe again. Only this time there was no running. No panic. Just heat, slow touches, whispered promises neither of us were ready to unpack. We hadn't gone all the way, yet, but we'd crossed something else. Some emotional line that made it hard to breathe and even harder to pretend that this was just a thing. I shifted slightly, careful not to wake him, and slipped out of bed. And then I did the dumbest thing imaginable. I smiled. Like an idiot. Like someone who believed the universe might actually let them have something for once. I padded down the hallway, bare feet on cold marble, hoodie zipped up halfway to hide the constellation of love bites scattered across my collarbone. God help me, I was happy. Until the doorbell rang. And everything went straight to hell. She was beautiful. That was my first thought. Tall, elegant, wrapped in a white blazer that screamed old money and high standards. She looked at me like I was a raccoon that had wandered into the Ritz-Carlton. "Is Chase in?" she asked crisply. I blinked. Yeah. And you are?" She gave a tight-lipped smile. "Elizabeth Monroe. His mother. Cue internal death." "Right," I said, voice cracking as I opened the door wider. 1 second. I ran, literally ran, back to the bedroom. "Chase," I hissed, shaking his shoulder. "Wake up." Code red. Parental level code red. He groaned. "Wah! Your mom is here." He sat up so fast he nearly headbutted me. "What?" I shoved his shirt at him. "Go. Talk. Lie. Hide the fact you slept with the broken turn." Chase stumbled out, hair a mess, shirt inside out. I followed like a nosy ghost and hovered just around the corner. "I told you not to come unannounced," I heard him say. "You weren't returning my calls," Elizabeth replied coolly. "And I needed to speak with you before the investor gala." "Ah, yes. The gala. The fancy event I'd been planning like my career depended on it. Because it did." "About what?" Chase asked warily. There was a pause. Then she said the one sentence that made my blood freeze. "About you taking back your engagement to Cassandra." "Engagement?" I stepped back like I'd been slapped. There was silence in the room. Then Chase said, "That's over. I told you that. I'm not marrying for convenience." "You're a Monroe," she said sharply. "Convenience is the brand." "And what if I want something real?" Elizabeth scoffed. "With whom, Chase?" "That intern wandering around shirtless this morning." My heart plummeted into my shoes. I didn't wait to hear more. I went straight to my room, slammed the door, and locked it like it could keep out the truth. "Engaged? To someone else? And he never told me?" My phone buzzed. It was a message from Reed. Of all people. "Told you he'd break you." I deleted it, then stared at the ceiling and asked the universe a very simple question. Why do I always fall for people who are already halfway out the door? Chase knocked 20 minutes later. "Jay," he said softly, "please open the door." I didn't answer. "Let me explain." Still nothing. He exhaled hard. "It was arranged. Years ago. Corporate merger crap. I haven't spoken to Cassandra in months. I swear. I still didn't move. Because even if he hadn't lied outright, he hadn't told the truth either. And that hurt more. "Jay," he said again, voice breaking this time, "please don't shut me out." But I already had. Because for the first time since I met Chase Monroe, I wasn't angry. I was hurt, which was worse. Way worse. Chapter 7. The runaway intern, the rooftop, and the confession I didn't expect. I packed my stuff at midnight. Not much to gather. A hoodie, laptop, 2 flash drives, and my pride, which was in critical condition but still breathing. I left my key card on the marble countertop and scribbled a note on the back of a project draft. "Thanks for the opportunity. Good luck with your perfect life." Petty. Yes. Deserved. Also yes. I caught a rideshare back to my crumbling shared apartment in Queens. My roommates were still out of town, thank God. So no one saw me collapse onto the floor with my hoodie over my head and a single Reese's cup I found at the bottom of my backpack. This was my rock bottom, and it was peanut butter flavored. 3 days passed. No calls. No texts. Not even a meme. Just silence. Like I'd been erased from Chase Monroe's billionaire Rolodex of emotionally damaging flings. And the worst part, I missed him. Not just the hot body or the sugar daddy apartment perks. I missed him. The weirdly specific coffee orders. The secret dimple he tried to hide when he laughed. The way he'd pause behind me during work sessions and whisper, "You're brilliant, you know that?" I wasn't used to being wanted. And now that I knew how it felt, losing it felt like drowning in reverse, quiet, cold, and constant. On the 4th day, I went up to the apartment rooftop with my laptop to finish the lighting program solo. I figured I'd submit it anonymously and ghost the gala entirely. Screw rich people. Screw Chase Monroe. Screw Jay. I turned. He was there, rain-soaked, breathless, in an oversized hoodie and jeans that looked too normal for someone who probably owned a diamond-studded belt buckle. "How did you find me?" I said flatly. "I bribed your neighbor," he replied, holding up a grocery bag. "She said you can be summoned with snacks and emotional apologies." I blinked. That's not inaccurate. He stepped closer, slowly, like I was a deer and he was afraid I'd bolt. "I messed up," he said, eyes locking onto mine. "I should have told you about the engagement. I didn't because it never felt real. You're the only thing that has. I scoffed. Do you rehearse those lines, or do they just pour out naturally? I'm not trying to charm you, Jay. I'm trying to keep you. I turned away. Too late. He came up behind me. I called off the gala. My head snapped around. You what? I postponed it. I told the board I needed to step away. I'm going to restructure the company. Realign the vision. Because of me? Because of us, he said. Because I can't do this without you. There it was again. That truth in his voice. The kind that cracked through defenses like a crowbar to glass. Do you even know what this is? I asked, voice trembling. Because I don't want to be your experiment. I'm not just some poverty kink fantasy. His face twisted. You think that's what this is? I don't know what this is. I shouted. All I know is I'm halfway in love with someone who doesn't know how to let people love him back. Silence. Then he said, I'm in love with you. I froze. I didn't know it until you walked away, he went on, voice cracking. But I do. I love the way you challenge me. The way you think. The way you never let me hide behind all this. He gestured around him. Money, privilege, control. I stared at him. His stupid, beautiful face. His stupid, sincere heart. And just like that, my anger snapped like a pencil under pressure. You're such an idiot, I whispered. Is that a yes? No, I said. It's a maybe with conditions. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. Name them. No more secrets. Done. No more rich boy mind games. Deal. And if you ever lie to me again, I'll taser you in the groin. He grinned. Kinky. Noted. I rolled my eyes and kissed him. Hard. On a rooftop. In the rain. With pigeons watching like judgmental angels. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a project. Or a placeholder. I felt like someone's person. We went back to his place. There was a slow burn. A long shower. Soft laughter. A spice level that can't be legally described in public. And when we collapsed onto the bed, wrapped in each other like puzzle pieces that finally fit, Chase whispered into my neck. You saved me. I whispered back. Try not to need saving next time. Chapter 8. The gala, the mic drop, and the happily ever after I didn't think I deserved. I'd been to a few formal events before. A charity ball once. A weird award ceremony for excellence in university parking committee leadership. Don't ask. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for this. The Monroe Investment Gala. Hosted in the biggest event space in Manhattan. Crystal chandeliers the size of sedans. Waiters with French accents I suspected were fake. A jazz quartet playing what sounded like Billie Eilish if she had a trust fund. And me, in a tailored black suit that Chase had overnight from Milan, standing next to him like I belonged there. Which, spoiler alert, I still wasn't sure I did. Are you okay? Chase whispered as he adjusted my tie. Again. No, I said. I'm one shrimp puff away from anxiety-induced spontaneous combustion. He grinned. You're doing great. Liar. He leaned in and whispered, just remember, they're all terrified of me. That helped more than I care to admit. The event was going smoothly, until it wasn't. It started with Cassandra. Yes, that Cassandra. The ex-fiancée, now dressed like a fashion magazine cover and flanked by two assistants who looked like backup dancers from a futuristic opera. She approached like a missile. Well, well, she purred. Chase Monroe. You've upgraded. I opened my mouth, probably to say something deeply clever like, but Chase beat me to it. Cass, he said coolly. Glad you came. Jay, this is Cassandra. Former business arrangement. Current walking scandal generator. Cassandra smiled at me. You're cute. Poor, but cute. I blinked. You're really into the whole villain energy, huh? She blinked. Excuse me? I smiled sweetly. Nothing. Just wondering where you parked your flying monkeys. Chase nearly choked on his champagne. Cassandra's mouth twitched like she wanted to slap me, but her manicure was probably too expensive to risk. She turned and walked away with the grace of someone who practiced storming off in mirrors. That was fun, I muttered. She'll survive, Chase said. She always does. Then came Reed. Remember him? My toxic situationship. The one who thought emotions were optional and ghosted me for 3 weeks after I confessed I liked him. Yeah, he was here too. Apparently working PR for one of the hedge fund booths. He approached with a plastic smile and a drink in hand. Jay. Wow. You clean up nice. Thanks, I said flatly. Chase came up behind me and casually wrapped an arm around my waist. Reed's smile faltered. Oh, he said. You two are. Dating, Chase said. Monogamously. Passionately. Frequently. I choked. Reed stiffened. Right. Well. Good for you. Then he slunk off like a Disney sidekick who lost his job. I turned to Chase. Was that necessary? Therapeutic, he replied. Absolutely. Then the speech. Chase took the stage to address the guests. The whole room went still. He looked confident, collected, powerful. And then he went completely off script. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, I had a polished speech about market trends and next-gen investments prepared. But I threw it out. There was a confused rustle through the audience. Because what matters to me isn't just profits. It's people. And sometimes the most valuable investment you can make isn't in stocks or mergers. It's in someone who believes in you when you don't believe in yourself. He looked right at me, and I swear the whole room vanished. This year, he continued, we're launching a new community initiative for low-income entrepreneurs and students. Mentorship, scholarships, and funding. Led by someone who taught me more about authenticity in 6 months than I learned in the last 29 years. He held out his hand. I blinked, then walked up, and took it. The applause was instant, loud, and weirdly genuine. After the gala, we escaped to the rooftop, back in hoodies, barefoot, and high on adrenaline. You were amazing, I whispered. You were better, he said, pulling me close. Ready for the next chapter? What chapter is that? Moving in. Sharing a toothbrush, arguing about paint colors, possibly adopting a cat named Bitcoin. I laughed. That's a terrible name. We'll compromise. He kissed me slow, with the city lights flickering around us and his heartbeat pressed against mine. And somewhere between poor intern and billionaire bad boy, we found something neither of us expected. Love. Real, messy, ridiculous, spicy, deeply inconvenient love. And for once, that was more than enough.